All right, let's talk about something that's quietly happening in your grocery cart, a kind of silent crisis in the world of health food. We're going to dive deep into the skimflation of health food.
So you're doing everything right? You're buying all the healthy stuff, you're tracking your macros, but the results just aren't showing up. You feel like you're putting in the work, but what if the problem isn't actually you? What if the food itself is the issue, and the numbers on the label are telling you a story that just isn't true?
Okay, let's break this down. We all get inflation. Prices go up, you pay more for the same thing. Simple. But skimflation, man, it's a whole lot sneakier. That's when the price tag stays the same, but the quality of what you're buying takes a nosedive. And when it comes to health food, we're not just talking about taste, we're talking about the actual nutrients you think you're paying for.
So let's open up our first case file here, the great protein scam. You know, protein is that premium ingredient. It's the one you pay extra for, the one you track so carefully. But with the cost of good stuff like whey protein going through the roof, some manufacturers have gotten, well, pretty clever about protecting their bottom line. And that puts your most important macronutrient squarely in the crosshairs. So how does this work? It's all about a little trick with nitrogen. See, the protein content on a label is typically measured by testing for nitrogen. So to cut costs but keep that protein number looking high, some companies will dump in cheap nitrogen-rich fillers like the amino acids glycine or taurine. It spikes the test results, making it look like you're getting more protein. But here's the catch. Your body can't use those fillers to build muscle. At all. So just think about what that means for you. You buy a protein powder that proudly says 25 grams per scoop on the front. But once you account for those useless fillers, you might only be getting 15 grams of actual usable whey protein that your body needs. That's a 40% difference, a huge gap you never even knew was there. And it's not just the powders, folks. A lot of meal replacement bars have quietly swapped out high-quality milk protein for much cheaper hydrolyzed collagen. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, collagen is what's called an incomplete protein. It's missing tryptophan, an essential amino acid your body absolutely needs from food. Without it, your body just can't build muscle, giving it a digestibility score of 0. You're basically eating a candy bar that might have some skin benefits, not a real muscle-supporting meal. Now let's head over to the meat aisle, because the story definitely continues there. To deal with rising costs, some producers are getting more and more aggressive with plumping chicken, that is, injecting it with a saltwater solution. The industry standard has crept up to as high as 18%. Yeah, that means you're paying for chicken, but you're taking home almost 20% water and salt. And this creates what you could call a macro math disaster. That 100-gram serving of chicken that used to pack 23 grams of protein now only gets you about 18, and at the same time, your sodium intake just went through the roof. You think you're hitting your protein target, but really, you're just paying for water weight. The dairy aisle isn't safe either. You know, real Greek yogurt is thick and high in protein because they strain out the whey. But Greek-style yogurt, that's a shortcut. It's basically just regular yogurt with thickeners like cornstarch thrown in. It feels the same in your mouth, but it can have almost half the protein. We're talking 10 grams instead of the 18 you were expecting. Okay, so we've seen how they swap out ingredients, but this next part of the story is, in some ways, even more concerning. This is about how companies are using the rules of the system, the regulations themselves, to hide the truth right there on the front of the package.
Let's talk about the explosion of net-zero carb breads. The magic ingredient in a lot of these is something called modified wheat starch. It's sold as a type of fiber that doesn't affect your blood sugar, which, sounds like a dream for anyone on a keto diet. But there's a pretty big catch. And the catch is all about your own biology. For about 40% of us, this so-called keto-friendly ingredient spikes blood glucose almost as much as regular white flour does. So you could be paying 3 times as much for a special keto product that's actually kicking you right out of ketosis. This quote really just hits the nail on the head for our next piece of evidence, because it's not just about the ingredients themselves, it's about how the rules get bent. The serving size on a nutrition label has become one of the most powerful tools for, well, legal deception. We've all seen this, right? The big, beautiful 0 on the can of cooking spray. It seems like an absolute miracle product if you're counting calories. But how is that even possible? It's pure oil after all.
Well, here's the trick. FDA regulations say that if a single serving has less than 5 calories, a company can legally round it down to 0 on the label. So what do manufacturers do? They just shrink the official serving size down to an impossibly tiny 1/4 of a second spray. I mean, who on earth actually sprays for only 1/4 of a second?
And here's the real cost of that little trick. Let's say you use that 0-calorie spray for a more realistic 2 seconds, maybe 3 times a day. You're actually taking in around 450 hidden or ghost calories of pure fat every single week. That adds up to over 23,000 calories a year that your calorie tracking app knows absolutely nothing about. This kind of thing happens with healthy fats too. You buy those chips cooked in healthy avocado oil, paying that premium price. But if you look at the fine print, you might find that the oil is actually a blend, often made of 80% cheap inflammatory sunflower oil and just 20% of the good stuff you thought you were buying.
So look, these aren't just a few isolated incidents. They all add up. Let's bring all this evidence together and really calculate the real-world impact of skimpflation on what might look like a typical healthy day of eating.
Just imagine this kind of day. You start with one of those meal replacement bars, which we now know might be mostly collagen. Then for lunch, a big salad with that plumped chicken breast on top. And for an afternoon snack, a cup of that thick, Greek-style yogurt. I mean, on paper, that looks like a fantastic, high-protein day.
So according to the labels, you've crushed it. You've had a solid 60 grams of protein. But in reality, when you factor in the collagen fillers, the water weight in the chicken, and that lower protein yogurt, you have probably absorbed less than 35 grams of protein your body can actually use. This is the protein gap, and it's exactly where diet results go to die.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that the rules of the game have quietly changed. The protein numbers on the front of the box are often inflated, serving sizes can be total marketing tools, healthy fats get diluted, the quality of our core ingredients is slipping. It's just not enough anymore to just read the label.
Which leaves us with this final thought. In a world of rampant skimpflation, where the numbers on the package can be so biologically deceptive, maybe the most important nutritional skill isn't reading what's on the label, but learning how to investigate what's actually inside it.